Discover surprising facts about sex and marriage in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, sexuality was an integral and guilt-free aspect of life, from conception to death and rebirth. Unfortunately, limited references exist on this topic due to the perishable nature of materials used for documentation, such as susceptibility to humidity, water damage, and destruction during wars. Stone carvings or writings deemed socially inappropriate were concealed or destroyed. Some records may have been stolen from Egypt and hidden away in museum storehouses, awaiting rediscovery. Despite these challenges, ancient Egypt maintained a relatively natural and unblemished view of the human body and sexuality compared to contemporary and later cultures. In ancient Egypt, the scarcity of material on explicit sexual positions and activities is often interpreted by researchers as a reflection of the society's acceptance of bodily functions and activities, leading them to consider it unimportant to extensively document such details. The prevalent view was that men had a singular role in creating life, while women were seen as having two roles: firstly, arousing and encouraging the man's creative act through their attractiveness and sexual allure, and secondly, sustaining the life formed by his creative power. Nakedness was so common that a semi-transparent dress on a woman, especially when wet, was considered sexually appealing to men. In ancient Egypt, depictions suggest that sexual positions, including doggy style with the man standing and the woman bending over, were relatively popular. However, the representations alone do not provide clarity on whether these instances involved anal sex. Additionally, the concept of virginity held little significance in ancient Egyptian society, both for individuals and couples. It was common for individuals entering marriage to have engaged in sexual relationships with each other or others prior to marriage. In ancient Egypt, the sanctity of marriage was highly valued, and infidelity was deemed unforgivable, leading to immediate divorce. Fornication with a married woman was considered both a moral and legal offense. The negative confession in the Book of the Dead outlined the sexual morality norms of the time. Marriage contracts from the 26th dynasty indicated that a man had no obligations to a woman if he divorced her for infidelity. While divorce under less dramatic circumstances was not stigmatized, remarriage was common. However, the societal emphasis on producing children posed challenges for women past their reproductive prime in finding suitable spouses. In Egyptian culture, the significance of marriage lies in the functional aspect of sharing a home, rather than a grand ceremony. The process involves a quiet gathering where both parties agree on contributing goods to the household. Prenuptial agreements are common, ensuring that the bride retains control over her personal belongings post-marriage. The relationship dynamic is one of equality, with men and women viewed as equal partners and referred to as brothers and sisters. Women are respected as collaborative workers with their husbands, not subordinate, while the man assumes the role of the household head, expected to be obeyed. Despite the open acknowledgement of sexuality in Egyptian culture, rape was strongly condemned, and perpetrators were typically punished. Although sex was a visible aspect of life, the Egyptians had clear limits, and instances of sexual assault were seldom documented. The rarity of recorded cases suggests that such matters were considered private affairs between individuals. When authorities were informed of such incidents, it was recognized that intervention was necessary to uphold peace and order. Egypt's rich cultural and religious history is evident in its buildings, artifacts, and written records, showcasing a deep connection to numerous gods and mythological stories. Many myths incorporate elements of sexuality, such as the creation of gods by Autumn through masturbation and the relationships between sibling gods like Geb and Nut, Osiris and Isis, and Horus and Seth. Incest is a recurring theme, notably in the case of Osiris and Isis, reflecting a practice more prevalent among pharaohs and nobles. This may be linked to the importance of maintaining pure relationships within the political elite for royal succession. Ancient Egyptian gods engaged not only in relationships with each other but also with humans, as depicted in the divine conception stories of pharaohs like Hatshepsut and Amenhotep III, who were said to have impregnated their mothers through divine means. While sex held a positive social and religious significance, Herodotus notes that the Egyptians were pioneers in making it a religious practice to abstain from intercourse in temples and required cleansing after being with a woman before entering a temple. In ancient Egypt, the desire for social advancement led to a preference for having numerous children, with no stigma attached to illegitimate offspring. Despite a low average life expectancy, the pursuit of large families was not always indicative of a couple's desire for children, as Egyptians employed various contraception methods. Common practices included coitus interruptus, douching, anal sex, and the use of a linen-based blocking system inserted into the vagina and removed with tweezers, reflecting the diverse and sometimes questionable methods employed to prevent pregnancies. In cases where contraception methods failed, abortion was an option available to individuals in ancient Egypt. Although the practice was not highly prevalent due to the value placed on life, it was socially accepted when deemed necessary. According to the ancient Egyptian papyrus Ebers, women could induce abortion using herbal drinks, vaginal douches, and vaginal suppositories within the first, second, or third time period of conception. Another method mentioned in the Kahun papyrus involved using crocodile dung as a pessary, made with dough and inserted into the vagina, serving both as a contraceptive and a miscarriage inducer. While crocodile dung has spermicidal properties, it was likely employed more as a contraceptive than an abortifacient. Prostitutes in ancient Egypt held a revered status and actively promoted themselves through attire and makeup, often being associated with local temples, thereby contributing to the temple's income. Some prostitutes wore blue faience-beaded fishnet costumes, while others walked about naked. Despite engaging in fertility-related services, there is no evidence of direct reimbursement. These women were treated with dignity and honor due to their perceived connection to the sacred, serving roles as caregivers, singers, dancers, and musicians. Their activities were seen as channels for fertility, magic, and religious practices. Historians and Egyptologists debate the attitudes toward homosexuality in ancient Egyptian civilization. One notable case involves Khnumhotep and Nyankhnum, two senior officials whose tomb artwork is subject to interpretation. Some scholars argue that the paintings depict a form of homosexuality between the two married men, suggesting a level of tolerance for same-sex relationships in ancient Egypt. However, opinions on this matter vary among experts. Polygamy was widespread in ancient Egypt, particularly among the upper classes. While an ordinary man could afford multiple wives, it was financially burdensome. Kings and rulers, like Ramses II, commonly had concubines alongside an official wife. Ramses, for instance, is believed to have had numerous concubines and around 150 children by the age of 91. There are claims that Egyptians had to be cautious about embalmers, as some were believed to exploit the deceased, particularly women, engaging in sexual acts with them. Consequently, families hired guards to protect the bodies during the embalming process. To deter potential misconduct, families would delay delivering the body of a young woman for mummification, allowing putrefaction to set in before the embalming.